postures, the first 35 or so yogic postures are inscribed in the pyramid. Comes from a Netarian worldview. So the Netters believe, Netters where we get the word, originally in German, but now in English, nature. Netters basically were aspects of Creator that took separate form. So that if you want to understand, know God, so to speak, then you study the universe, because God's in the universe. God's in you, in the table, wherever, right? So, hence in yoga, you have Sphinx pose and Cobra pose and tree and mountain and et cetera, et cetera. You become like that animal to study it and become like it and become like its aspect and identify it as part of yourself. This is the 0 point. On the 0 point, the point is basically the point at which creation starts, and the circle is creation, 0. Point, 0. So you could think of it like the ripple, like a rock got dropped in a pond and then creates ripples. You could think of it like that. You could also think of it as the 0 point is the top of the pyramid before creation, and the pyramid is creation. Okay? This is part of the working philosophy of the pyramid builders. These are not just tombs. Actually, they're not tombs at all, but anyway, they're not just tombs. They're basically symbolic as well as functional, representing a certain view of reality, as is the caduceus. Yes?
And is it true that archaeologists generally believe that the pyramid was built from top down?
I think according to the History Channel, if that's what you mean by a representative of a representation of archaeology according to Western civilization, you build from the bottom up. But they don't know how. They don't know because again, they can't duplicate the construction of a pyramid. But if they were going to do it, they say, "Oh well, on the History Channel when I was watching this, they were saying." This construction guy was saying, okay, well, here's how I do it, and this is how you could possibly do this, but we don't have the ability to do this. Not to those tolerances. Fancy way of saying, I don't know. Don't think so, but. So, the idea is by meditation, you can be aware of become the 0 point. One-pointed. To become one-pointed, then, is to be at the start of creation before it becomes visible, and to basically be able to create, there's a saying among my people that we're good at making something out of nothing. Okay, so the 0 point, that concept of, okay, you get at the point of creation before something becomes manifest to create something. So, like the clear pond. So, thoughts are the ripples. And one goal of several forms of meditation is basically to become aware of thoughts until the thoughts disappear or become less identified with them.
So you can't make ripples go away by making more ripples.
Right. No, there is a technique for making more ripples called mantra. So, first steps to self-mastery is basically controlling your mind and emotions or becoming aware of them first. So, mindfulness begins when you can see your thoughts and emotions as they are happening and be able to see them clearly without being attached to one particular course of action. So the Sphinx itself symbolizes mind over material, spirit over matter, self-mastery within the physical world, using breath as a key. So you will witness in this class disturbing things. You will have your mind blown. You will may have to reorder your sense of reality. So pay attention to your experience. Use the energy of the breath to get through whatever the difficult parts are. All right. And I'll try to have these up on the Moodle site afterwards, in PDF as well as PowerPoint if you don't have them. Yeah?
Isn't it weird to say that ancient India and Sanskrit was an African colony? Wouldn't it? Because they wouldn't call themselves that, would they?
No.
But at the same time, it's like, who's to say who was in power anyway? Everyone was just connected.
Usually, the reason I said that is because by our usual concept of conquest, where you have cultural diffusion through military intervention, that defines colony. That's one. Two, doesn't mean that they will always be a colony and there will be a point in time where they become independent as well.
Maybe it's more like the Hopi, that there was a people that spread out and everyone had the same knowledge.
There is that too, right? But again, we're speaking English, therefore our minds are formatted for that particular axiology, which wouldn't take that into account. You know, I mean, the Winnemem Wintu, whose indigenous areas, Mount Shasta, say that humanity came from the spring at the top of Panther Meadow. Okay. You know, I believe at least 6 impossible things before breakfast. That doesn't have to be one of them, but that's your worldview. That's not where my view of where I came from, but okay. I'm willing to, you know, yeah. Is that symbolic or is that literal? Is that figurative? What is it?
Doesn't life come from everywhere, though?
There is that, too. So, you've been taught, for example, what I just showed you is when we talk in English about separation of church and state, that is in reaction to what happened during the Inquisition, where the Catholic Church was the church. And if I wanted your stuff, I could just say that I saw you consorting with the devil and no evidence, and they would take you and torture the devil out of you until you died. Right? Which is why in America we have rules of evidence. You have to confront your accuser, etc., etc., etc. You have the right to counsel, etc., etc. Right? So, and while we talk about separation of church and state, you know, Sharia law is not going to happen in America, okay? Y'all stop worrying about that. Not going to happen. Okay? So there's some real good reasons why we have what we have here. All right? The church has separated spirituality from religion. It has. And I'll further define that statement later. So, the state has taught you to think of history as the dead past, irrelevant to now, instead of present and influencing the future. And that's what they told me when they were kicking me out of my doctoral program. Don't bring up the past. No, I would have been graduated in 2001, except you got rid of the head of my committee. And replace the head of my committee with somebody that doesn't believe what I was talking about. What's a meme? Okay, we're in 2004, and the concept has been out since '85. Viral, that's where we get viral. Well, I don't understand, Mark. Stop. You have an explanation for why middle-class white kids are becoming like black gangsters? No? Well, I'm saying
Is that a question?
That was the question.
Oh, please excuse me.
That was the question that I was posing to the head of my committee. I said, your academic literature does not keep pace with reality. There is no literature on gangs which explains why white middle-class kids are becoming like black gangsters. They're not coming from poverty. So they're not getting in gangs because they need to make $80,000. They already come from families that make $250,000. All they have to do is duck their heads and go to school. Why are they rebelling? Well, I don't know. For the same reasons that their grandparents were becoming hippies to become faux Indians. When you ask them, the kids, why they're becoming like black gangsters, I'm a 7'4" Hoover Crip. Right. Where are you from? You're from Beaverton. Okay. So well, we listen to rap music because it's telling the truth that we're not getting in school from our parents. Okay, so you're rebelling against the hypocrisy that you see in your white culture. This is their words, right? But nobody has written that up. I would have been the first to write that up in 2001. What?
They stopped you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
With a 3.5 grade average. So whatever. It's not about academics. It's about politics. Oh, okay. It's all right. Doing it anyway. So you've been told a tale. So there's an African proverb. The hero is the teller of the tale. All right? So this means three things. One, whoever tells the tale tells it to make themselves look good. Makes sense? Human? If I'm lying, I'm flying. Right? Whoever tells the tale tells it to make themselves look good. Each telling makes the teller look better and diminishes others in the tale. Three, knowing this, you can correct for the bias in the teller's point of view and learn to tell a larger story if the teller isn't already telling a larger story. The hero is the teller of the tale. Now, this is the simplex view. Okay? A complex or multiplex view is where you get into deconstruction. Okay? Deconstruction is where you get into so I'll go to the next slide. So, Columbus discovered America. Now, you may not know. Well, discover, right? I mean, most people, I did this too. You go to the dictionary and discover means you found something first. Right? But it's also a legal concept that leads to a policy. And a policy is an agreement how we deal with a particular problem. So what's the problem? Well, we'll see. Oh, Columbus discovered America. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? You heard that? Who did he discover? Indians, okay? Why? So there's two narratives here, okay? Why are they called Indians?
Because he wanted them to be Indians, because he was looking for India.
Okay, all right, that's one narrative. What's another one? ¿Te hablas español? ¿Cómo dice Dios en inglés?
Because he was working for Spain.
God, in Dios, okay, in God, like God made them, like in the Garden of Eden. Right? The people were dressed for the weather, right? Which was less than, they're like nearly naked, because, yeah, it's like 90 in the Caribbean. Why wear clothes if you don't need to? If you go on swimming. All right? So who did he discover? Indians, but that's not a part of the narrative there, right? Indians. All right, so now we have two possible word origins, doing a little bit of deconstruction about Indians. Now, Columbus, be assured, Columbus's Moorish navigator knew we ain't going to India. We are going to the circuit of the world. We know that. We're not going to fall off. Columbus be tripping. But we already know, the African brother knew, we ain't going to the end of the world. We're going to the circuit of the world. But he's not writing the log, and that's the log. It's the log that we take the history from. Okay? He ain't writing the log. He already knows, if we want to go to India, we have to go around, sail down the coast of Africa, and go that way, east. Because the Moors have been doing that for a couple of millennia by that point. So, where did he discover them? Oh, that's not part of the tale either, huh? Huh.
On an island.
On an island. What's the name of the island? Not Easter. Easter's on the other side. You would have to go, yeah, anyway. What the Spanish called San Salvador Island. Now, now, when you hear this narrative, do you think about this stuff? Like, okay, who are these Indians? San Salvador Island, do you think, was it called something before San Salvador? Was Turtle Island, was America called something before America? You know, an Italian sailor. Was it called something before 1492? Why does history start in 1492? Like there was nothing happening here before then? See, I mean, you begin to have these questions, and if you ask them as a fifth grader or whatever, they say, shut up. Right? So what did he write in his log about them? They would make fine slaves. Because, you know, they'd never seen a sword before, and they grasped it by the business end and cut themselves. Oh, they're peaceful. No, but you don't know that. So, what did the hero, Columbus, leave out of the narrative, the story? Well, lots. So, is the omission deliberate, unconscious, or what would it lead you to think of? So, this narrative is a construction. It explains all that comes after, but none of what comes before. All right? So, in an African framework, I have to tell you the context that the event happened in, and that means telling you what happened before, because adults need the context. Only children are given the abbreviated story because they can't understand the context. Unless they can ask the question and demonstrate that they understand that there is a context, and then you fill in the blanks for them. Or you tell them the straight deal when they experience something. All right? So, the narrative is a construction. Look, this class is a construction. I have a definite bias. Straight up about that. Maybe you've detected it. All right? So, the narrative of contact. Nothing important, and this is the message, the subtext, if you will. Nothing important happened before contact. October 12th, 1492. All that you need to know is what happened after contact. Right? Pretty much. So, Afrocentric tale-telling. Afrocentric is centered on Africa, not from an African point of view, but the way Africans see things. That is, you have to arrive at a complete understanding of the history from the point of view of everybody that was there. Everybody, not just the tailor telling the tale. What are the other folks saying? Do we know what they were saying? Some of us do, some of us don't. Right? Tell the tale from the point of view of everybody that's in the tale.
Which we don't consider.
Well, again, it's not Afrocentric that generated this axiology. Causes us to speak English without knowing the origins of the words. So let's try the Columbus narrative again. I'm going to make a slight detour. The Cordoba Initiative, you can Google that. These are the folks, the imam of that particular mosque, and there's, there are a bunch of mosques with around ground zero. Osama bin Laden is to Islam what the Ku Klux Klan is to Christianity. Maybe you never heard that before, but that's true. Is the Ku Klux Klan representative of Christianity? Well, some people say no,
Yes.
but some people say yes. I mean, so understanding, there are some people that say, racist, patriotic, and notice how there's a linking of patriotism with racism. Really? Why? Did we not fight and die for our country? Too? Some illegal immigrants have gone to Iraq. So why are you denying their children benefits? Did they not pay in blood for you to discriminate against them? Cordoba Initiative, is basically placing what would be in Christian equivalents, a YMCA near ground zero. Okay? Doing something that a mosque doesn't in particular do. Yes, there will be a mosque there, but there will also be a gym and other stuff and a way of designing cross-cultural understanding. And the reason that he called it Cordoba is because what happened at Cordoba. Now, the Iberian Peninsula, which basically contains, notice what I'm doing here, giving you the context, historical context. The Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, right across the Strait of Gibraltar from Africa, had been conquered twice by Africans. One in 1050 BC. Took it over from the Romans, held it for 150 years until the Romans took it back. 1050 BC, that's one. The second time was 711 to 1492. So you understand the convention of how we order things in English. Before Christ, nothing happened, so it's the year zero, it's prehistoric, right? After, so we also use BCE, before the Common Era, and then CE, the Common Era. Okay, so BCE, 1050. First time, 150 years. 711 in the Common Era to 1492. Note the date. The second date. Right? So, Africans conquered the Iberian Peninsula in Europe. Under their influence and rule in Spain in particular, the city of Cordoba in the 10th century was the largest city in Europe. Now notice, in our framework, we consider the Iberian Peninsula Europe, right? So Cordoba was the largest city in Europe. 500,000 people under Moorish conquest. While the rest of the Europe was in the Dark Ages, Cordoba had the largest library on the planet. 1 million volumes, books. Existed nowhere else in Europe. I mean, there were libraries in Europe, but none as big as this, in the biggest city.
How did the library fare in the Reconquista?
Oh, gone. Gone.
It's interesting how that happens in history.
Yeah. So, Moorish conquest brought libraries, fountains, gardens, culture, medicine, science, architecture, mathematics, finance, and art. They fostered a religious tolerance which allowed the building of synagogues and churches as well as mosques. All this quote-unquote progress, because again, this came from conquest, okay? People died to have this rule imposed on them. Y'all going to get along. Okay? We're people of the book. We believe as you do. You know, so it's left out of this story, obviously, is what happened to pagan shrines before that. Okay? Because the Abrahamic religions, and by that I mean those that revere Abraham, the patriarch Abraham, so in order of appearance, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Okay? That's why they allow churches, synagogues, and mosques, because they're basically the same folks in the Moorish view. You know, we recognize all the Rasuls, the messengers of God that came before Muhammad. So Isa, Jesus, Musa, Moses, etc., Isaiah, all those folks. We recognize them. But they also throw in the belief that nobody's had been a Rasul after Muhammad. Okay. Got some issues with that, but hey, that's your belief.
It's really cool how the Moors don't fall under that spell of just the superficial words of the religion. That it's just an interpretation of the divine.
Yeah, yeah. So, all this progress was erased by the Inquisition after Reconquest, which is what your word did, Reconquista, the word in Spanish, by the Visigoths. You know, who are the Visigoths? Goths are the indigenous, if you will, white people, Europeans. All right, so this is the context in which now the Spanish queen, Isabella, then contracts with this Italian sailor, go ye forth. Right? So another subtext that I will talk about this later when I talk about introduce the concept of justice chess. The Moors had a trading relationship with the Hindu Indians. The Hindu Indians had a game called Chaturanga, which basically is the back line, elephant cavalry, foot soldiers, etc., etc. The Moors added the second line, and they called it Shatranj. They brought it with them when they conquered the Iberian Peninsula. With Reconquest, the game was repurposed and named chess. Okay? Now, in Shatranj and in Chaturanga, the queen did not have the power that she did in chess, that she does in chess. Okay? The Moors had viziers, a minister, which is now the bishop. Okay? So you change the rules, you change the pieces, and you kind of erase the history of where the game came from. Bishops were also boatmen originally. More about that later. Reconquest by the Visigoths. So, Cristobal Colon, an Italian sailor working for the Visigoth Spanish government, utilizing a Moorish navigator, makes first contact with a particular group of Europeans with the Taino nation at Guanahani Island on October 12, 1492, according to the Gregorian calendar. Now, look at that phrase there. Okay? If you hang out in Indian country, you know that in addition to the 150 million people that were on Turtle Island at the time of contact, okay? There are many nations. The concept of Turtle Island is many nations. One land, many nations, no borders. Okay, you're going to go into somebody else's traditional lands, then you make contact appropriately. Stand on the border of their village, make a fire, wait till somebody comes out to you. And you're welcome. Because we're all the same people. Mashika Tawe, Takwiyasi, etc., etc. Not that we don't have wars. All right? So the idea then, the Taino nation, the Taino had come up from Colombia 6,000 years before, and they, along with the Arawak and the Caribs or Canibs, populated what we call the Caribbean. Right? Jamaica is an Arawak word which means land of the springs. Guanahani Island, it was basically the island that made first contact. All I'm saying is there's a history before Columbus got there. Right? So the Taino nation. Who are the Tainos? Well, they populated what's now called, well, it's called Puerto Rico, but they call it Boriken. These are a folk that have aquaculture. They farm fish and sea turtles. They jump on sharks to till them. I don't know how many Spanish jump on sharks. But these folks basically farmed the ocean. So that's why they're dressed for the weather and they're swimming. They are the source for the words in English, or if you go to the dictionary, they say it's a Spanish word, which is a lie. They're all Taino words. Canoe, hurricane, iguana, hammock, among other things. Right? Barbecue, barbacoa, is a Taino word. Right? The dictionary erases that and says, oh, it's Spanish, because the Taino are extinct. Yeah, right. Who wants them to be extinct? So, it's not the first contact for the Taino of seagoing people from other continents. This fact was noted in the logs from Columbus' second voyage with the Taino gift of guanine spear points. So Columbus notes this in his log. This is from the book, They Came Before Columbus. So one of the things that the author is talking about is this story where Chris is looking for India, right? So he shows up, and in the manner of Turtle Islanders, you give your newfound friend a gift. And among the gifts that they gave were 2 guanine spear points.